Hello and welcome to the Glamptuary Podcast, where we talk about the experiential outdoor hospitality industry, and I am your host, Bobby Marsden. Does the subject of business financing stress you out? Well, if you said yes, you are not alone. Securing funding is the number one ranked stressor amongst entrepreneurs, and finding the right partner to help you navigate these often uncharted waters can be the difference between the success and failure with startups. Our guest on episode 4 is the guy you want to talk to if you have a desire to launch a business in outdoor hospitality. His name is Bruce Hurta, and he is the small business lending specialist with Business Finance Depot. In this episode, Bruce helps us understand the 101s of SBA loans and what loan officers are looking for when presented with startups or ideas to expand in an already established business. So get your pen and paper out and listen along as we learn how the world of financing works in episode 4 of season 4 of the Glamptuary Podcast. Bruce, wonderful to have you on the Glamptuary Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You have, I'm going to just say a number, over 30 years. It might be more than that. Over 30 years of experience in finance. And you have such an extensive background. And your focus now is outdoor hospitality. But before we get into that, I would love to know, where did you start in finance? What was your first job where you would technically say, I now work in finance? Because I'd love to know where this all started for you.
I graduated from the University of Texas in Austin in 1975 with a degree in finance, and my first job was as a bank examiner for the state of Texas. I became the youngest commissioned bank examiner in the state of Texas at that time, and it was a real fast track. We had high turnover at the time, and that gave me lots of opportunities. So I was, right after graduating from the University of Texas and getting that job, I worked out of Austin for about 4 months before they transferred me to the Bryan College Station District, which is the home of Texas A&M, the big rivals of the University of Texas. So somebody was playing a joke on me. But for 2 years, I examined rural banks around Bryan College Station in kind of central Texas, and then I got transferred to Houston. And I've been here ever since. I've been president of 2 community banks here in Houston. And for about 25 years, I've been specializing in SBA loans through the Federal Small Business Loan Program. Because most of these community banks that I worked for, that was, small business was our thing. And the SBA loan program is really good for that. How did I get into campground financing? I was actually not working for a bank at the time. I had joined a non-bank SBA lender. There's only 8 licenses for non-bank SBA lenders, and then they stopped issuing them. But this was a large company, and I worked for them for about 13 years. And I was doing SBA real estate loans nationwide for all types of small business real estate. And during that time, my parents bought an RV. And I grew up on a beef cattle ranch in central Texas where every day was all about work all the time. Getting up early, working on the weekends when my friends at school were doing something else. And I couldn't wait to graduate from high school and get away from home and let my little brothers take over. And so why did I go into banking? I wanted a job in the air conditioning. I wanted to get out of the country and get to the city. So, but then seeing my parents, these workaholics who had built a 2,000-acre ranch in their lifetime from nothing, all of a sudden take off a month in the summer and go to New Mexico or Colorado because it was so damn hot in Texas. That impressed me. And they were committed. They became committed RVers. And I said, there's something to this. And so I was working for a nationwide SBA lender. So I had a nationwide lending platform. I was already specializing in small business real estate. So this was just a perfect opportunity for me to be an early adopter of that type of financing. That company eventually dissolved. I guess that was in the big crash in
Which one?
2000,
2008?
2008. Yes.
Yep.
And so I ended up going to a credit union in Houston and building their SBA loan program for the next 8 years. And because I was just a local lender, it didn't have a national lending platform, I got out of campground lending. Well, when that credit union decided they didn't want to do business lending or business accounts anymore, they wanted to go back to the traditional model of just consumer accounts, I joined Ameris Bank out of Atlanta, a national SBA lender, as their outdoor hospitality loan specialist to develop their national platform for lending to RV parks and campgrounds with SBA and USDA loans nationwide. So that's when I really got committed to the industry. And then that bank, if you remember a couple of years back, there was the regional bank in California that had a run on deposits and it affected
Right.
deposits for all the regional banks. Ameris decided they wanted to focus just in their region where they could gather deposits and no longer have a nationwide lending platform. That's when I retired from banking in June of 2023. It was a 45-year banking career. And then in October, I joined Paul Bosley, who was a friendly competitor in that space. And Business Finance Depot is a mortgage company that represents banks that have an appetite for lending in outdoor hospitality. And I'm the company's outdoor hospitality loan specialist.
That's an interesting retirement strategy, Bruce, is that you got right back into full-time work.
I work from home. I'm out of the corporate culture. I take naps, sleep late.
Well, it sounds like that's actually the way most of us should work. So I'm happy that you landed in that space. And it also sounds like a space that you're passionate about. I heard you speak at the glamping show, I think back in 2023 when you were with Ameris. And my takeaway when I heard you speak was that you were so personable and approachable. And I think financing is a very intimidating thing for a lot of people, especially people that haven't went through it before. They just don't know they don't know where to start. Banks can feel cold. You think you need a lot of collateral, you need all these things in place. It's not going to work. I'm not worthy of the money, and I think the reality is there's a lot of possibilities out there and you just have to ask. And that was my takeaway when I heard you speak. I'm like, that guy would be somebody that I think I would feel comfortable approaching to talk about a new business idea. Do a lot of people, would you find that more often than not, it's people coming to you looking for financing that have never had it before? Do you feel it's like a 50-50 mix? Like what is generally your customer look like?
I do a lot of counseling, probably too much to my detriment as far as producing new business. But you're right. I'm passionate about it. I like the industry. I love the people that work in it. And I'm having a good time. So why not?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned SBA, and for, I think, a lot of listeners, including myself, I mean, I'm not super familiar with it. Could you kind of give the 101 of SBA and what it's used for and kind of the way that you would walk someone through explaining exactly what it is?
Well, the SBA is the U.S. Small Business Administration, and there are a lot of facets to that government agency that are not lending. In fact, I think a lot of them are getting trimmed right now. But it looks like the lending programs are probably here to stay. Maybe they're even going to be beefed up some. We'll see. But basically, there's two flagship small business loan programs. There's the SBA 7A government guaranteed loan program that can be used for any legitimate small business purpose. And borrowers can use that program to borrow up to $5 million per borrower. And that's it. That's your limit. The SBA 504 loan program is a mix of two different loan products. It's a conventional bank loan in a first lien position on the property, and then a government-backed debenture in a second lien position behind the bank loan. On that debenture, the borrower gets a below market fixed rate for 25 years. If they're financing real estate, if they're financing equipment, it would be for 10 years. The 504 program can't be used for any legitimate small business purpose. It's only for fixed assets, real estate, and equipment. So a lot of 504 lenders cannot finance the goodwill portion of a purchase price in a business acquisition. only the real estate value. So sometimes that's why you see people use the 7A loan, even though they might like the interest rates better on the 504 loan. It's just more accommodating. So basically, it's that government backing on the loan. If the lender ever experiences a loss because the borrower defaulted on the loan, the government will cover a portion of that loss for the lender. So you may ask, well, why don't lenders get more aggressive if the government's covering a part of their loss? Well, the government also looks at the lender's track record. And if you have too many defaults, you'll lose the privilege to make SBA loans. So there's a range in defaults that you have to work with, and it's low. So it's not that there's no risk for the bank. There is risk. It's just mitigated with a partial government guarantee. And that allows the lender to offer lower down payments and longer repayment terms than conventional bank loans.
Which sounds great, especially when you're starting a new business, because you're not necessarily going to be profitable for maybe year 1, 2, or 3 even.
And a lot of small business owners, they'll graduate from the SBA loan program as they get a track record in their business. First of all, there's a limit on how much they could borrow with SBA. So once this business is successful, they might want to use SBA for another new business. And so you see them move on to more conventional financing because it becomes easier to qualify after you have a track record.
So you can refinance the SBA loan into something else.
Yeah, the SBA 7A loan program, the nice thing about that is even though it's permanent financing for 25 years, it only has prepayment penalties for 3 years. Most commercial investment real estate loans, if you get permanent financing for 25 or 30 years, you have significant prepayment penalties for at least 5 years, maybe 10 years. And with the SBA 7A loan program, it's only 3 years. And you can do both construction and the permanent financing all in one loan, the same transaction, one-time closing costs. You can set up the loans where you don't have any payment requirements until the construction's complete because we're loaning you the interest also. So you're using a permanent financing program sometimes for bridge financing or development financing, and you plan on refinancing it later. And that's because most SBA loans are at a variable interest rate tied to the Wall Street Journal prime rate. And so as prime changes, your rate will change. You might want to lock into a good fixed rate later on. And after you have a track record with the business, you may have lots of lenders that will qualify you to do that.
That's a great point. Well, let's go to step 1. Let's say someone has an idea. They haven't broken ground yet. They're trying to figure out how they're going to get financing, or maybe they have found an area that they want to start building, but it's a greenfield. It's starting from scratch, literally. What would you advise someone to start to put in place so they potentially can be attractive enough for an SBA lender would say, okay, I see your vision, I see your idea, and we want to invest?
We always want to know how much cash somebody has access to because you have to have skin in the game. No lender will make a loan without your equity being there first. And so you want to make sure that's there. But then secondly, and maybe more important, is what are their credentials to be successful running a small business, particularly an outdoor hospitality business? Do you have business ownership or business management credentials of any kind? Do you have hospitality credentials of any kind? Have you done development or startup businesses before? If the answer is no to some of those questions, you might want to consider for your first time, instead of building, buying something existing and learning all the hard lessons first there. And then when you really get it down and have a thorough understanding of the business and the industry and the way you want to run it, then develop something new exactly the way you'd like it. And you're willing to face all the hurdles that you'll have to face with new development at that time because you'll have more confidence in what it's going to look like in the end.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think a lot of people, when they have this idea, they want to do it their own way and they want to get there as quickly as possible. But I think you make a great point in that sometimes it's a long play. If you really want to do this, and I think working outdoor hospitality or any business, you have to be willing to move slow and grow. And starting with an existing business seems like a great way to do that, to get your feet wet.
And finding one to buy is not easy. I mean, there's a lot of overpriced campgrounds on the market. If you want to be in a certain area because that's where you live and you don't want to move, that really restricts what's available. And so, yeah, then the only option is to build new. So then, like you said, you might do it in chunks. Do phase one, phase two, phase three. Do some manageable chunks, manageable to you, manageable to your lender, manageable to your resources that you can commit to the project.
Well, let's play off that too a little bit. Are there any additional things that would be red flags to a lender besides potentially lack of experience, or not having skin in the game? Like, is there anything else that they're looking to see, like a feasibility study? Or are there any other business plans or pro formas? Are there any things that they're just expecting? Like, if you don't walk in the door with this, it's a no-go.
Got to have good credit. If your personal credit score is below 700, you need to work on it. And cash flow is what repays the loan. So you've got to be able to convince the lender that the cash flow is there. If you're buying an existing business, that starts with the seller's last 3 years tax returns. Mm-hmm. And you start there, you do adjustments to income, you try to normalize it and get to, what cash flow is available on an annual basis to make a loan payment. And an SBA lender is going to want a debt coverage ratio of 1.2 or better, which means you need about 20% cushion above covering your operating expenses and your loan payments in the cash flow represented by the tax returns. If it's a startup business, then it's all about your financial projections. And your financial projections have to be based on assumptions. And those assumptions need to be filled with data. And the data comes from the market research or the feasibility study. So that's what you need for a startup business, is that data, that feasibility study or that market study. Some borrowers have the ability to do that themselves. Most of them hire a third-party professional because they don't have the ability, but also because the third-party professional lends credibility.
It's interesting. You had responded to one of the Glamptuary blog posts with a picture. It was Dunya Camp in Georgia, and you'd asked if I knew them, or if I knew that you had been part of getting them financing. And I know there's a little bit of an interesting story about the woman that got financing, and that she had a lot of the presentation materials ready to go, pretty polished, and yet she still was running into challenges, and you were able to help her get financing when she was running the roadblocks with other places. Can you kind of elaborate on that story or walk us through what that process was like for her to get Dunya Camp up and running? Sure.
Yeah, that was, I guess, 3 or 4 years ago. So it was when glamping was just first becoming a buzzword. Mm-hmm. And so all the lenders that she approached, it's just like, glamping, we've never heard of that. And the thing about her is the owner of Dunya Camp is Sangeeta Ramkumar. And she was a hospitality consultant for a major firm out of Atlanta who had all her ducks in a row. I mean, she had raised her capital that she needed for the project. She nailed down all of her project costs with firm bids and quotes and contracts. When you were asking, what's absolutely essential on the front end that's sometimes hard to do, that's one of the things, is what is the project cost and how can you assure the lender that you're going to stay within that budget? Well, you nail it down by getting complete engineering and architectural drawings so you can get a reliable bid from a qualified general contractor, and then you get quotes from vendors for everything else. And she had all that. And great credit and everything, but it was just really the business itself. Sticking it remotely on the side of a mountain up in northern Georgia somewhere, it's just like that was hard for a lot of lenders to relate to, but it was ideal because of her credentials for an SBA loan. I'm just very proud of that project, because if you look at the website and the pictures, it's just beautiful. And so I brag about it all the time.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I mean, they have these beautiful tents and they have beautiful sauna. They have beautiful outdoor jacuzzi. The setting is very remote. And so, is that something, the glamping word or outdoor hospitality, is that still kind of a barrier for lenders because they don't understand it? And are there things happening where you start to see lenders and banks and people kind of coming back around?
Yeah, it's getting better. Yeah, it's getting better. If you go to the national convention, OHI, Outdoor Hospitality Industry Convention, or any of the state or regional ones, you see a lot of investors moving from, say, the self storage space and looking for a new type of investment, and they've heard about it. Uh, they may come in thinking it's just RV parks, but then I've watched that RV park industry during that time frame I described for you. It morphed from RV park industry to outdoor hospitality industry, and now I'm hearing experiential hospitality because I think that's a little more all encompassing.
Yeah, there's a lot of different categories. I think as we talk about outdoor hospitality, there's campgrounds, and this has been around for a long time. I think the outdoor hospitality or experiential outdoor hospitality tag that's being assigned to it is maybe what's throwing people a little bit. Because when you say campground, I think everyone knows what that is. Say RV park, I think everyone knows what that is. You say glamping resort, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, glamping resort? What does that mean? When you work on your financing deals, is there one particular type of destination that seems to be the most popular? Is it campgrounds? Is it RV parks? Is it places like Dunya Camp, which I would call an experiential outdoor hospitality destination? Is there one that kind of seems to be leading the charge?
Well, RV parks are still the cornerstone, but I mean, there was a study that just in the last year that's dwindled just a little bit, but it's still a very healthy industry. I think it's because it's becoming more diverse. We see a lot of RV parks adding cabins and park models, and that works. It works really well. And as far as the types of whether they're RV parks, campgrounds, or glamping resorts, the best types to work with are the destinations, and close to the national parks is the best, or close to beaches and the coast, or something that attracts visitors for a hospitality experience.
Yeah, I think that being close to outside experiences is going to bring in the experiential part of the hospitality, whether you're going to do it on site, like Dunya Camp, for instance. You can take a sauna right outside of your tent, or you can take a jacuzzi right outside of your tent. That's an experience. They may have hiking trails and things around on property for their acreage, but then it's interesting when people want to go offsite. I'm starting to see more and more destinations try and partner with outside businesses and things to try and bring more of the community aspect back into that. If you were to give advice to, anyone that's out there wanting to get into this industry. So this is someone that maybe just fell into some money so they could put some skin in the game, but they really don't know where to start. What are some pieces of advice that you would offer to them so they could start to try and determine at least where would I do this, or what could I do if I had land?
Yeah. Any kind of education, accreditation, or certifications that you can get in the industry are helpful. Not just to show your lender, but just helpful to you. And OHI, Outdoor Hospitality Industry Association, is great. They've got the programs. Another thing to consider for people on the first time that want that management component, that expertise, the reservation systems, is a franchise. There's two really strong franchises in the industry. Both of them are highly rated by a company called Data that rates franchises for SBA lenders, and they've both proven over a long period of time to have very low default rates on SBA loans. And so if you are approved to be a KOA franchisee or Yogi Bear Jellystone franchisee, that kind of moves you to the front of the line with the lender. They like those deals. They know that you've got a lot of support to make that business successful.
That's a wonderful piece of advice. I think my takeaway is that realize it's a long plan. It's not going to happen immediately. And I think the more prepped that you can be and the more strategic partnerships you can make, the more time you take to immerse yourself in this is only going to make you that much more attractive to a lender, because at the end of the day, you need money to make it work. I think the last question I'd ask is, you mentioned your parents were big RVers. Did you become one yourself?
I'm a glamper.
Ah.
I do not want to maintain an RV.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you like experience. I mean, you grew up on a 2,000-acre cattle ranch, which actually sounds fantastic. And I know you said it was work from sun up to sundown, but that experience is something that you never forget. And I think that's what people love about outdoor hospitality is it's a chance to connect with nature, but you're doing it in a safe way that doesn't require a ton of effort, which opens you up, I think, to just have more of an experience. It's less to worry about. And I think the people that are knocking it out of the park are the people that are really paying attention to detail. And I applaud what you're doing to help them get to that spot, Bruce. So keep up the good work.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to do it.
Well, thanks for joining the pod, Bruce. And hopefully I'll see you down the trail somewhere.
All right. Have a good one.
I want to thank Bruce for easing us into the finance discussion, which can be very stressful for many people, me included. Having a calm and trusted partner to help you navigate obtaining financing is a key to a successful journey in outdoor hospitality. Now, if you'd like to learn more about financing and how you can acquire some funds and what Business Finance Depot and Bruce are up to, you can check out their website, which is www.businessfinancedepot.com. And if you'd like to follow us on the Glamptuary Podcast, you can do so on our website, which is www.glamptuary.com. That is www.glamptuary.com. You can also follow us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you like to get your podcasts. We just ask that you follow along, and we thank you for doing so. We'll see you down the trail in the next episode, and until we do, be well.